The other training videos are about theory. This one is about how to practice aliveness awareness. It's one way to practice a method of unbinding. My assumption here is that you have never done it before, so these instructions are for beginners. You only need one belief to begin, namely that practicing aliveness awareness might benefit you. Without such a similar belief, you'd have never undertaken to walk, or talk, or skate, or ski, or surf, or any other skill. Once you discover for yourself that it will help you, you'll no longer need that belief. Then detach from it, let it go. Conditions don't have to be perfect for you to begin practicing. The closer to ideal your conditions, the easier it will be for you. However, if your situation is less than ideal and you are powerless to improve it, don't worry about it. As you'll soon experience for yourself, practicing aliveness awareness is simple, easy, enjoyable, and beneficial. So, what's the best way to begin? It's best to begin in a quiet place where you are able to lie back comfortably. I find that a room inside where I can be alone is preferable to being outside where there may be other people or animals, including insects or inclement weather or unnatural noises, but it can certainly be practiced beneficially outdoors. Meditative practices are either moving or stilling. This is a stilling practice. The initial procedure is to reduce and stop all voluntary motion. After a while, though, there's no problem, for example, looking around the room. So, unlike any moving meditative practice, aliveness awareness doesn't require expending any physical energy. In that sense, it's physically very easy. Unlike a standing practice, aliveness awareness is easy to sustain. Since you'll be lying back, it is more difficult than a sitting or kneeling practice in one sense. You may sometimes find that you have a tendency to fall asleep. Really, though, that's not a problem. If you need sleep, sleep. Aliveness awareness is a meditative practice. The key to all meditative practices is simple. Notice when you are lost in thought and instantly refocus your practice. Since your focus or attention will be on aliveness, this practice is naturally called aliveness awareness. Stilling yourself physically aids in stilling yourself mentally. Since thoughts are mental noise, the goal is to still or drop them and enjoy silence, which is the language of the divine. So, practicing aliveness awareness begins by stilling yourself physically. It works best if you are able to lie back. If you are fortunate enough to have a comfortable recliner in a quiet room, use that. Simply lie back on the recliner. Do not cross your legs. Keep them relaxed and together. Have your upper arms next to your torso. Relax your hands either on top of your hips or next to them, whichever is more comfortable. Ensure that your neck is straight. It's easiest for a beginner to focus if you close your eyelids, but that's not mandatory. If your eyes are open, keep them still, and if possible, let them go out of focus. Take a deep breath or two to help you relax. Your breathing should soon naturally become silent, regular, deep, and slow. Stilling yourself physically really is simple, isn't it? What if you don't have a recliner? That's not a problem. If you have a bed, use that and lie back. However, if you use any flat surface, it's best to put a pillow or two under your knees to take the strain off your lower back. If you are more comfortable with the pillow also under the back of your head, that's not a problem. What if you don't have a bed or pillows? Lie inside on a floor and use something else. For example, a couple of rolled up blankets for under your knees. Alternatively, lie outside on a flat piece of ground and use something else. For example, a rolled up and folded over piece of carpet or a log for under your knees. In short, simply lie back in a comfortable position that's easy to sustain for a while. Now that you are physically still and comfortable, it's time to still yourself mentally. How? Instead of permitting your attention to go wherever it wants to go, you will discipline, purify, train it to focus on the aliveness of your body. Aliveness awareness is based upon a simple fact, namely that it feels good to be alive. The cells in your body are living cells. Your body, of course, is an organism, a living cluster of organized cells. Believe it or not, just being alive feels good. If so, why don't you usually notice it? Perhaps you never have noticed it. It's because your attention is incessantly preoccupied with your thoughts. In fact, again, Thought addiction is the compulsion that underlies all addictions. All meditative practices are ways to freedom from compulsive thoughting. So practicing aliveness awareness is simple. Just return focus to aliveness whenever you notice that you are once again lost in thoughts. How? How exactly are you supposed to drop thoughts? It's very simple. Just let them go. Detach from them and instantly refocus on the aliveness. However, what is simple is not necessarily easy. Aliveness awareness is just a way to make detachment from compulsive thoughting easier. Again, since your body is alive and being alive feels good, the way to wean yourself off incessant thoughting is simply to practice focusing on that good feeling of aliveness. Practice for just 5 minutes daily until you begin to feel the aliveness. How many days will you have to practice before you feel it? It varies. Some people feel it the first time they practice. It takes some people several weeks. Don't worry, since we know that you are alive, if you practice, you soon will begin to feel it. It took me about 2 weeks of practicing 5 minutes daily. In other words, I felt nothing for quite a while. I wasn't, however, really worried. Since I understood that I was as alive as everyone else among the quick, there was no reason why I couldn't do it. I merely persisted until I began to feel it. It's easiest to begin by focusing on the feeling inside your still hands, or for some people, inside their still feet. What? How, you ask, can you focus on the sensations in a hand if your hand isn't moving? There's no sensation there. Oh, but there is. That's the point. You can't think your way to feeling aliveness. You have to drop thinking in order to feel it. In general, if you are thinking, you are not meditating. In my case, I first began to feel something inside the knuckle of a forefinger. My hand was perfectly still, but I began to sense a kind of tingling or strange feeling of slight pressure inside a knuckle. It was something like a very mild electric shock. As I kept practicing day after day, I could not only again feel it regularly in that same knuckle, but it soon extended to the whole forefinger, and then to the whole hand. I then tried focusing on the other hand, and sure enough, I began to feel it there as well. Having learned that focusing on one's feet is also good, I tried that. Yep. Eventually, I began to open up as I began to think of it, other parts of my body. Beginning with noticing the aliveness inside a hand, I'd focus on the motionless forearm to which it was attached. Cool! Then I moved up to the upper arm and did the same thing with the other arm. Eventually, I began to feel it also in my face and lips. From the feet, I worked up to my shins and then onto my thighs. I don't know exactly how to describe the sensation. It can grow in intensity with a longer duration of focusing. In fact, it can become so intense that you may wonder why you're not yet levitating. That was my experience. If you begin simply by focusing on the sensations inside your still hands or feet, yours will be similar. Just keep perfectly still and really focus on the inside of whatever body part you have selected as your focal point. The key to learning to master a new skill is never skip practicing. Many times when learning a new skill, you will seem to be on a plateau rather than improving. As long as you don't think that's a problem, it's not a problem. Most practice sessions do not result in rapid jumps in the skill. Most practice sessions do not show any improvement. Therefore, there's a sense in which the key to mastery is to enjoy the plateaus of practicing. Don't let thoughts of increased future mastery intrude. Be fully here right now. Again, as long as you don't expect practice sessions to show improvement, there's no problem. Your expectations are just thoughts, and the whole point is to detach from thoughts. Why? Again, since mental stress comes from opposed thoughts, detaching from thoughts dissolves it completely. Occasionally you will notice improvement. Appreciate it for a moment and then drop any more thoughts about it. Just practice and stop thinking about practicing. So let's talk about the duration of your practice. How long should you practice? When is the best time to practice? Initially, begin with just 5 minutes daily. Persist and never skip any days. Make and keep that commitment. If you fail to time your practice sessions, you'll begin thinking about their length. You'll sometimes wonder, how much longer? So use a timer to time them. An ordinary kitchen timer or cell phone that makes an audible sound is fine, but don't have it so near you that it jars you when it goes off. Once you begin to feel the aliveness, increase your daily practice time slowly. How much should you increase it? I recommend just a minute or two daily. Work up to at least 20 or 30 minutes daily. All meditative practices are nurturing practices. The more you practice them, the better you'll feel. So practicing 20 minutes twice daily is better than practicing 20 minutes once daily. More important than the duration, though, is the intensity of your focusing. So after the next month or two, you'll likely be practicing at least 20 minutes daily. If you don't think you have at least 20 minutes daily for practicing stress reduction, you'll never stop living poorly. When's the best time to practice? Whenever you find yourself upset about something is an excellent time to practice. If you are unable to do that, at least practice as soon as possible after acknowledging the upset. I explain why in my book, Emotional Facelift. The best time to begin any new practice is first thing in the morning before your excuses for not practicing have a chance to pile up. It really doesn't matter if you practice before or after coffee or tea. It really doesn't matter if you practice before or after breakfast. The point is to make practicing part of your everyday morning routine, just like brushing your teeth or using a toilet. Another excellent time to practice is just before you go to bed. And do not watch any electronic devices such as computers, smartphones, or televisions after practicing. Here's how to think of practicing. Practicing is vacationing. Our English word vacation comes from a French verb that means to vacate. To vacate what? Suppose that you have scheduled a vacation and drag with you on that vacation all your troubles. Perhaps you take a trip to the seashore or mountains. Instead of enjoying your destination, you are burdened by the thoughts of all your problems. You return from your vacation feeling no more refreshed than when it began. The purpose of taking a vacation is to reset and focus yourself from your problems. If you keep thinking about your problems, you'll enjoy no reset or freedom. The difficulty is not thinking about them. Well, that's because you don't practice detaching from them. Until you master the practice of detaching from them, you can't avoid thinking about them. The more you think about your problems, the more dissatisfied with your life you'll be. So I recommend thinking of your daily practice sessions as mini vacations. Notice that problems require time. In that sense, they are like stories with a beginning, middle, and end. They're not momentary. There's no better way to empty your mind of thoughts than mastering some meditative practice or other. Why? When mastering it frees you from the burden of time. It's a transition from becoming to being. They all do that, but there's no more enjoyable meditative practice than aliveness awareness. Why don't you find out for yourself? What do you have to lose? I'll tell you, the heavy burden of your thoughts. That means everything that you are worried about. Mastering meditation is not about gaining anything. Instead, it's really about losing. In other words, to lose a thought is to detach from it. There's no living well without mastering detachment. It'd be natural for you to wonder, what do I have to gain by mastering any meditative practice? The answer, nothing. Believe it or not, you already are what you need to be to live well. All the dissatisfaction you experience comes from that. For example, again, your life is caught between two kinds of thoughts about your future. On the one hand, since your life has not yet been as satisfying as you'd like, you hope, imagine, dream, wish for future fulfillment. In other words, greater satisfaction and completion. You have positive thoughts about your future, right? Simultaneously, having observed for yourself that no forms abide, you simultaneously have negative thoughts, fears about your future. You worry that you'll become disabled. You predict that sooner or later you'll become ill and feeble. You fear losing your independence and becoming unable to feed or wash yourself or use a toilet without assistance. The dying process and death itself frightens you. What will become of your cherished projects? Notice the stress that is generated by those two kinds of thoughts. Lose the thoughts to lose the stress. What happens when you practice detachment sufficiently? Life becomes more playful, more fun. Daily life is not as serious a concern as most people think it is. What happens when you master the method of unbinding? you'll discover for yourself that it's a very clever way to enjoy life more. You'll be opening to being. And since problems require time and there's no time in being, there are no problems in being. Actually, and this is also very interesting, you won't even have to make an effort to practice it daily. Why? Here's what happens after a while. Whenever you are still, you'll automatically begin sensing the aliveness. You may just be sitting in a chair or in a car or on a train. Why shouldn't you? You are alive, and when you are still with sufficient practice, you'll begin sensing it automatically. For example, it's even possible to practice aliveness awareness while you're watching television. It's true, I don't recommend that you watch television regularly while you're doing it, but you could. Lie back as usual and ensure that you are able to see the television. Select the channel you want, adjust its volume, then simply be perfectly still and watch the program for 30 or 60 minutes. Here's my prediction. Once you get good at it, you'll be wondering where this practice has been all your life. Why didn't anyone ever tell you about it? Well, that's now changed. I hope to have reshaped your mind, and once a mind has been stretched, it never again resumes its former shape. If you don't master aliveness awareness after having now learned how easy and beneficial it is, you'll become annoyed with yourself if you don't begin practicing. Thoughts of annoyance are just thoughts too. Drop them. Be peaceful.